Hey, welcome back, parents. Listen, today I have on the show someone from my childhood. I grew up in rural Nebraska, in Crawford, Nebraska, which is a tiny little town of like 1,000 people up in the northwest corner of the state near South Dakota and Wyoming. Well, when I was young, my mom belonged to a bridge club where she would get together with other moms from the area and play cards like once a month. And so Sara and I met when our moms would get together and play cards. So she is from Harrison, Nebraska, which is even further west in Nebraska, close to the Wyoming border. And so a big shout out to Connie Bosock, my mom, and Donna Holmgren. Welcome to the show, Sara Paxton.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here today. And it
Oh,
has been a while.
it has. So much time has passed since when we were young and like hanging on our mom's, pant leg at bridge club to like being separate because we were going to grade school and high school in different spots and then
Yeah.
moved away, had families, got married, and then reconnected through, of course, social media.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So good.
So
So
amazing.
you guys, Sara is a wife and a mother. So she is part of our audience, our community, right? She is married to her husband, Darby, and they live in rural Nebraska and have 5 sons. This is so cool. It's like testosteroneville over there, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Ages 10 to 18 are her boys. And Sara is a pharmacist turned certified health coach. She's also the founder of Nourish Health Coaching. Listen, this is how I decided to have Sara on the show. I was scrolling the socials and saw her beautiful face on this reel, and she was talking about self care. Great. We love self care and that topic, but Sara's take on it was different. And she was talking about flipping the script about self care as women, as mothers, just as people in general. So, Sara, can you give our audience a little taste of
Yeah.
that video reel?
You bet. You bet. So, what I was basically talking about in that reel is how so often I hear my clients say or have this kind of perspective that self care is selfish. And
Hmm.
I often say, oh my gosh, absolutely not. I really want to flip the narrative on that because actually we are meant, God's desire for us is to serve others and to take care of others. And it's very unlikely for us to do that when we don't feel good or, they end up having to take care of us. And so
Mm,
I often tell them, no, we need to, it isn't, sometimes we make, so many things about us when it should be about everyone else. It should be about, our children, our coworkers, our spouses, our families, brothers, sisters, parents, like we want to serve them. And so that is my big push that we are better able to serve people when we feel good and I just feel like that's how we build the kingdom. And it starts in our
mm.
homes. Like you're doing right here. Like it starts in our homes. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And I like how you kind of put us on the spot and you're like, actually it's the opposite. If
Mm.
you kind of decide to put your self-care on hold until your children are out of the nest or whatever because you feel like that's selfish, that is actually the selfish act.
It is. It is, and one of the things I'll never forget one of my first coaching clients. She was a mom of like 8 kids. And I remember her telling me, she said, Sara, for the first time in months, I feel like I have more patience with my kids. And that just really struck me. Like, I
Mm.
don't care how much weight you're losing. I mean, I do. I mean, if that's your goal, I do. But
Yes.
when you hear things like that, I think, now, looking back on her life, how different that would have looked if, her being a patient person, patient mom, patient spouse, patient, coworker versus not having that. Like, I feel like that's so important. And so yeah, those little things mean more to me, and what I'm doing for the client or how they're evolving than so many other things.
I can tell by everything you put out on social media that you really care about the whole human person and how their health and internally their, how their body is functioning, and then how they're just taking care of themselves through exercise and eating right, and how that influences their marriage and their family. Like, it's more than just, I need a client to come do some coaching and, deposit some money in the bank account and just go where
Right.
they want to go, right? And that
Yes.
be the end game. Like, you're like, "No, there's so
Yeah.
much to offer here,
Yeah.
right? In my program, and you deserve, you're worthy of caring for yourself in the way that eat and exercise and fill your cup."
Absolutely. And there's a Bible verse in Corinthians about our body being a temple of the Holy Spirit, and that we're supposed to honor our bodies. And I think that's so important. Like, we are called to take care of ourselves. I believe that. Like, we're not supposed to be just constantly filling ourselves with chemical laden poisonous type foods. We're called to take care of ourselves and treat that body as a temple. But yeah, Jordan, you say that, and I often have to even work with my clients in, okay, we have to think about, it's not just fitting in a bikini and looking good for next summer. Like, that's an okay why, but no, we need to go deeper. Like, what do we want years from now? We want to be
Mm.
able to feel really good, and that's where it becomes really important, is really digging deep on your why and what's important for, again, your family and those that you love.
Yes. Okay, so have you always been kind of a healthy eater? Because you're a very busy mom. You're married, you have 5 boys. So if you haven't always been a healthy eater, when did your own health journey start and kind of why?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We talk about this, and we talked about our moms earlier, and my mom was very good at, we didn't have a lot of sugar in the house. I feel like I really developed a lot of, good habits from her. But I still had some food addictions, and some, like, I loved sugar. And in college and into my first, even after the first few kids that I had, I got to a point, Jordan, where I was really struggling. Like, I had some major gut health issues. Kind of what we talked about with that first mom. I had very little patience. I was very moody. But fatigue was the hard thing. I was just really struggling. And when you're a mom of five, or even one or two children, like, you need energy. You need
Yes.
energy just to do the normal daily things. And I was working a full-time job, and there was just a lot of things. But yeah, I really struggled with my own food addictions, and really had this poor gut health that was leading to this fatigue. And so that's where I really kind of started my journey. It started with me researching, okay, how can I fix this without medication? And I doctored with a lot of, people, and I just wasn't getting answers. I wasn't getting answers why I was tired. I constantly I felt sick a lot, and so it was a journey for me. But I try to make it a lot easier for other women, because I don't want them to have to go through what I went through
Yes.
to feel good. So that's really important to me.
Yes. Okay. So you mentioned something. You said, I had a lot of gut health issues.
Mhm.
And then you mentioned, and I was waiting for you to say, like, oh, yeah, my stomach hurt all the time. I felt nauseous. I was wondering why I was getting sick after I ate something. But you didn't. You said, I was tired. I didn't have patience. I was low energy. Okay,
Yes.
talk about gut health as it relates to those things, because I'm thinking there's a bunch of listeners right now that's like, whoa, that's me. Does that mean my gut health is off? Or I
Right.
thought this was just like a normal thing because,
Yeah.
you're waking up in the night with babies or whatever. So help us
Yeah.
see the connection there.
Absolutely. So what again, when I went through pharmacy school, this was nothing I learned. I had to learn a lot of this on myself, but this is really an emerging thing in the medical world. Even, conventional medicine is using or realizing the importance of gut health. And one thing I would really mention is that symptoms are a blessing. Like when I was in the pharmacy world, and so many good things about I'm not, there's so many good things about the pharmacy world. We have so many medications that are life saving, incredible medications. But
Yeah.
sometimes symptoms are a blessing. They're a way of telling us something is not right in your body and it needs fixed. Like we need to find the root cause. What is causing this? And so that's where I kind of started making that connection of, okay, in the pharmacy world, if our blood pressure was high, we'd give a medication to take care of it, but we weren't asking, why is their blood pressure high?
Ooh,
Little
yeah.
things like that. And so when I was struggling with my own issues, it was kind of one of those things where I was like, I am not getting the help that I need. And why am I still fatigued and all those things? But right, I had hardly any actual gut issues, like bloating, that kind of thing. I
Yeah.
didn't struggle with like reflux, any of that.
Okay.
Stomach aches, maybe here and there, but nothing bad. But it was the fatigue. And another one was brain fog. I just felt like I was able to
Yes.
think clearly, that mental clarity that I once had was gone. And when you're trying to work a job that requires mental clarity, you feel kind of like, I don't know, I felt like an underperformer, I guess is the best word
Right.
for it. And that's frustrating.
Yes.
So, right. So there's this new, again, what the gut health means is we basically have this balance of good bacteria and bad bacteria. And we actually, there's more of their cells in our body than our own, which is incredible. But God made our bodies so beautiful if we just treat them the way that He intended us for it to treat them. And so basically what happens is, right, when this good bacteria, which is supposed to be high in number and diversity, when that actually gets low and the bad bacteria outnumbers it, that's when we start having these issues of fatigue and sometimes depression, anxiety. I would say I
Mm.
probably had a little bit of anxiety at that time. Low moods. I wouldn't say it was full blown depression, but I mean, I thought I had the best life, but I just had these terrible moods, and I was like, what's going on here? Why am I feeling this way?
Yes.
But it was that imbalance of bacteria. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay. And this is just, oh, so many light bulbs are going off for me because I've been a mental health counselor for 20 years.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
embarrassingly, I haven't been like, well, have you checked your gut health yet? I mean, I've
Right.
always recommend my clients go get a full, checkup and
Yes.
have their lab work done and all of that. But then I'm a mental health therapist. I don't know how to interpret blood work.
Right.
Right. So then between the doctor telling them, oh, it's good or bad or out of range or, within normal limits or whatever, if it was within normal limits, I'm like, okay, so this isn't a health problem. We need to, get to
Right.
the root of it psychologically. But wow, if I would have known this back then, like, hey, let's just start with some simple suggestions. You probably
Right.
don't even need to get your blood work done, but let's just assume that the bad bacteria is outweighing the good bacteria.
Yeah.
Here's a couple ways you can just practically start to,
Yes.
balance that in a new way. That could have brought on some like relief from the anxiety and
Absolutely.
depression. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Okay, bring the good stuff. Tell
Yeah.
us, like, for the listener, what are some easy practical ways that we could start rebalancing our guts without, major intervention?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, when we have that bad bacteria that basically is outnumbering, it's a very, what I like to call, it's like a parasitic relationship. Like that bacteria is getting the good from the food you eat. It's getting the vitamins, the minerals, but it's also like, yeah, causing you fatigue, and they are basically getting all of the good, and leaving you with feeling pretty dumpy, right? And
Yes.
so we want to again increase that good bacteria. So how do you do that? Very good question. Well, one of the things that we have to remember is that bad bacteria, they love sugar, They honestly love our bad habits. Okay. They do well when we don't sleep well. They do well when we don't exercise. They do well when we
Ew.
don't eat well. And so that's what's so incredible about all of this. Like, I'm not a big like calories in, calories out person at all. It
Right.
is like, okay, how can we nourish our good gut bacteria so that, again, we can really increase that number and feel good. So one of the ways that I usually tell people to start with is really limiting sugar. And of course, I think we all know this. Like, we just do. Sugar is it can be considered a poison, especially in the amounts that we are eating it in. And bad bacteria just really thrive on sugar. And one of the other things we have to remember is that when they love the sugar, so they grow in number. And the more that they grow in number, the more we crave sugar. So it can be this really vicious cycle.
Yes.
Sometimes, women will come to me and just, oh, my sugar cravings. And I often tell them, okay, it's not your fault. It's this bacteria in your body is saying, feed
Feed
me more sugar.
me.
Yeah. Because Jordan, what's really cool is there is this gut brain axis that it's called the vagus nerve, and most of the nerve fibers run from the gut to the brain. So yeah, when our gut bacteria is saying I crave sugar, that kind of thing, that goes to our brain, it makes us want to eat it, that kind of thing. So one of the things that I say is really try to limit sugar. And that doesn't mean when it's a birthday party you can't have sun at your or cupcakes at your son's birthday party. It doesn't mean that.
Yes.
Right? We have to learn
Right.
balance. It's just the fact that so many times we are filling our days with way more than what we need. And
Yes.
that's what I even just watching kids, I'm just like, we shouldn't want this for our children either. Seeing them, like I grew up there wasn't a lot of sugar in my household, and that did, affect especially, kind of me now, but I did have my sugar addiction as well that I had to break again. But
Yes.
teaching our kids those things, because I knew deep down it wasn't good for me and my mom had taught me that, but
Sure.
it's yeah, really important that we teach our kids that. So sugar is one of the first things I would say. And then the other one that we really have to watch is just really ultra processed foods, and that's going to contain a lot of sugar as well. But we're a very on the go society, and we can't there's it's not there's nothing wrong with, there's nothing wrong with that, but we just have to be careful in that busyness and that hurriedness. Are we choosing the right things? And I teach parents to not like come up with, excuses of, okay, we've got ball games this night and this night. We can still prepare and get in a routine where we're eating, more whole foods, less inflammatory foods. But if you were to start reading labels and just kind of looking at the different foods in our stores and in our pantries and whatnot, it's an incredible journey and rabbit hole you could go down to
Yes.
determine that, oh my gosh, a lot of these ingredients aren't even allowed in other countries,
Yes.
obviously. So
Totally agree. And
yeah.
I love how you're saying, as a mom with 5 boys who I imagine have been in sports and
Yes.
multiple different activities, that you still can do the things and
Yeah.
be a busy, bustling family, but
Yes.
also prioritize your health by planning and preparing in advance. And on your website, you have all these great recipes that
Yeah.
your family loves that are nutritious and are made with whole foods. I know when
I
I was a young mom, I was like, well, these people keep talking about whole foods. Like, and I didn't even have time to Google anything. I was like working a full time job, kids
yeah.
going to different schools. And I was like, I just see this like giant expensive grocery store called Whole Foods. And so does that mean like I just have to go buy whatever they have in there? I mean, I was just like,
Yeah.
and then when it was explained to me, like whole foods are things like vegetables that are just vegetables and
Yeah.
fruits that are just fruits. Like there's nothing added to them. They're whole because
Yes.
they are what they are. Nothing has been added to them, and beef and chicken and fish and things like that. And so
Yeah.
I think that's such a great point that if you just focus on eating more whole foods,
Hmm.
then that would be a great first step.
It totally is. And I often tell, what one of the basis of my teaching is that let's eat the foods that God put on the earth that, he intended for us to eat, right? And so even in my very rural town, okay, I'll just give you a brief picture of how rural we are. Like our closest large grocery store is 100 miles away.
Wow.
Yes. So, but we have a great little store in our hometown that I tell people, like, if you just focus on like fruits, veggie, if you can pick it, dig it, kill it, it's a whole food. Like that's kind of the rule.
Pick
Pick
it,
it.
dig it, kill it.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah. So if you can do those things, it's a whole food. And a lot of those things are in our store. Like, right, we're buying beef, we're buying chicken, we're buying fruits and veggies, some good healthy fats like avocados. We do have some dairy. So yeah, it's just really lots of eggs, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the foods that God put on the earth and intended for us? So that's important. I don't know if you saw, I posted a video the other day about, a lot of people ask me about wheat because they know that I'm kind of, on the fence, not on the fence. I just tell them, try to eat less bread and less flour. And they'll
Yes.
say, but wheat, but God gave us wheat. And I'm like, you know what? That's a very good point. But the problem is what man has done to wheat. And it's that, hybridization and the spraying of wheat and those things that basically the wheat we have that is in the flour that we purchased today has like 10 times the amount of gluten than the original wheat that was put on the earth. And
Mm.
so that gluten is really, really hard on our gut, super inflammatory, can actually cause holes in our gut lining. And they're finding that we're seeing more and more of this because we are eating about 10 times the amount of gluten with each piece of bread or whatever than we used to. So right, it's like going again back to our roots and okay, what was the original way that this was put on the earth? But it's a,
Yes.
it's a process. Like I am giving a lot of, little things right now, but it's a process. We take it step by step because we don't want to get overwhelmed and, like, oh my gosh, this is too much at once. That's when people
Shh.
quit. That's when
Right.
people say, forget it. I'm out.
Never mind. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. But that's kind of like purgatory
Yeah.
because now you have been informed and you're aware
Yes.
and you're not doing anything to help yourself, which means that you're not prioritizing your self care. Like
Amen.
you've just, listened to this great podcast. Sarah's provided all these practical tips. And then you're like, I'm just not going to do anything.
Right.
Back to that
Right.
kind of selfishness that this is too hard. Just pick one thing. If you're listening, you're a
Yeah.
parent, you're a grandparent, what's your one thing that you're going to start with to make sure that you're prioritizing first your own health and
Yeah.
then the health of your family? It's kind of back to that analogy of when you're on an airplane and the flight attendant says, put your own oxygen mask on first, because if you're dead out of air, you're not going to help the rest of your family. So same
Yes.
thing, maybe it just starts with you as mom going, okay, I'm going to try to tweak this myself. I'm going to ditch the piece of bread at breakfast, or have a corn tortilla instead of the flour tortilla with my
Mhm.
taco, and just make these slight adjustments. And then once you start noticing you're feeling better, let's start making those adjustments with our kids.
Yes. Yes. One of the things that I love that you said, Jordan, and I did, yes, it was in yesterday's actual gospel reading, and it was Matthew. I actually wrote it down because I knew I wouldn't remember it fully, but it was Matthew 7:13 and 14. Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the road broad that leads to destruction, and those who enter through it are many. How
Mm,
narrow the gate and constricted the road that leads to life, and those who find it are few. And I feel like what you say, that's so true. Like now we know what to do, but are we picking that narrow road? Are we choosing that path? And so and talking about freedom, like I like to tell people about the road to, life is more freeing. Like even, okay, say like we can choose the easy. We can
yes.
conform to the world and choose the easy. but it's more restrictive and we don't realize it. What if we're
Yes.
trapped in our own sin, right? That there's no freedom in that, right?
No.
Yes, we get that free will and what a gift, but we're actually chained. And there's the same thing with our food, right? We have
Yes.
to realize that when we're, choosing the easy route and the, processed foods and the foods that were not really intended for us to eat, that eventually is going to lead to less freedom when we're not able to get on the ground with our grandkids, or we don't have enough energy to do the things that we've, waited our whole lives, retirement to do. So
Yes.
I think that's so important for people to understand that we just have to really choose that narrow road. Yes, it may be harder at first, but it's so freeing when you end up choosing that.
I could not agree with you more. Discipline sets you free,
Amen.
right? Yes. That it's hard and it's the best.
Yeah, right. It is.
Everyone, that I love that gospel passage because everyone is invited
Hmm.
to the narrow road. And there's this big wide road too that you can jump on. That's the free will path, right? And a lot of us start out on the big wide road.
Yeah,
And we're doing what the world's doing and we're choosing the foods that the world's choosing and we're eating muffins that are cupcakes that are dressed up like muffins and being like, "Okay, oh well, it's just for today." And we're not thinking about the destination,
right.
right? That's what I love you talking about. Like, but you want to be an active grandparent. You want to be able to engage your kids. You want to be able to give your children, when they're grown, a good break from their kids and take your grandkids for the week.
Right.
How are you going to do that if you've built up and fed all this bad bacteria in your body for so many years that now that bad bacteria is like running rampant all over your body?
Mhm.
And so you're susceptible to cancer and inflammatory diseases that have you stiff and unable to move.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
so true. And how many people don't, on their deathbed, one of their things that they say is, I wish I'd have been taken better care of myself. Like we don't
man,
want to do, don't be that person. Don't.
yeah,
Yeah. It's a
you,
choice we get to make today. And kind
yes,
of when you talked earlier about, I also like people to know, like when you talked earlier about, making that one simple change, if we have to remember that those seemingly small, insignificant changes take maybe years to even see a difference. So,
right,
like, I'll have somebody say, "Oh, I cut this out and I started walking, but I saw no difference in the scale." Okay, hide the scale and
yes,
just know that good things are happening in your body, even though we can't see them. And if you keep up with that habit over a, year's time, it makes a big difference. It makes a
yes,
big difference. But we were, such an instant gratification as well, and so we want to see those things right away, and it is hard. I was there too. Like it took a long time for me to, just really feel good again. But yeah, I was patient with it, and I just decided I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep going forward with this. And yeah,
wouldn't
so
it be nice if we could throw out the scale and instead have this really awesome x-ray machine in our bathrooms where we just walked up to it? I mean, it didn't give us radiation, it didn't have any bad stuff associated with it, but
right.
we could see inside our bodies and we
Yes.
could see the armies fighting and we could see how many soldiers of the bad bacteria were in there and how many of the good bacteria were there. And then we could be like, okay, look, bad bacteria are way outweighing the army of the
Yes.
good. Okay, now I'm going to change my habits for a week and let's see them diminish and the
Right.
good bacteria grow. But you almost have to get that mental picture in your mind that
Yes.
there is this little war going on for your health, for your time on earth, and it's these two separate little armies fighting against each other, and we want to eliminate the
Yes.
bad bacteria and grow that good stuff. And there's only one way to do it, and it's by what we put into our bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that you basically said that because the scale is so many people's, it's just their nemesis, right? They just have so much trouble with it. It's the reason they quit. They're not seeing a difference in the scale. And I'm like, oh my gosh, beautiful things are happening. Beautiful things are
Yes.
happening. But right. Yes, what you said though about that army, right? And so it is a battle. And we just have to remember, like, even when we first detox from sugar, like when you first start cutting out sugar, you will notice sometimes some pretty awful side effects. And that is
Yes.
the actual die off of that. So I usually tell people, like, that is the sign that good things are happening in your body. Like, you're going to feel pretty kind of miserable for a little bit, 3 or 4 days,
Yes.
totally
Right.
worth it. But it's because that bad bacteria is dying off and they're releasing these endotoxins that make us feel like kind of flu like symptoms. But what a good sign. What a good symptom that good things are happening, and the
Yes.
beautiful side effect of cleaning our gut and fixing our gut is often that we're gonna lose weight as well. That is almost always the best, a really good side effect. So
Yes. I love that. So, one of the things I think that we enjoy that we don't think about as like having sugar, just because I like think about sugar as like sweets and desserts and cookies and but alcohol,
Mhm.
ooh, right? That glass of wine is like packed with sugar,
It
right?
is. It is. Yes. And bad bacteria do generally like alcohol as well. So right, the more we're drinking, it's just a big thing of moderation. If you're going to have a glass of wine once in a while, like, really no harm done. But
Okay.
are we using it every night as kind of a release? Then maybe it's time to think, okay, what's the root reason, like, why are we turning to alcohol? Is there something, different we can do in place of that? Is there a reason? Is there some anxiety that we have that, we can take care of in another way, like maybe
Yes.
even just, some type of exercise, I usually say movement instead of exercise, because I'm like, hey, maybe it means going out and playing pickleball with your kids, and
Yes.
whatever, I don't know. But
Yes.
make your movement fun and make that your stress relief. Like, that's how you wind down at nights.
Yes. Yes.
But it's
So
not that I don't enjoy a glass of wine every once in a while.
that's right. Again, we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
But maybe you decide, okay, I am going to give up the snacks and the sugary desserts so
Hmm.
that the glass of wine is like
Right.
a few of the bad army guys,
Yeah.
right?
100%. It is right. It's just these baby steps in the right direction. And then eventually, if you want to do more, you can. But just those little baby steps is important. And we have to, like, I feel like God wants us to change and evolve. Like, he
Yes.
desires that for us. So sometimes we just have to ask ourselves, God, how do you want me to evolve for you, now? Like, what's something new I can take on?
Mm. And
Yeah,
remember, I love how you say that because you're reminding me that like this isn't just your own battle with sugar or processed foods or not getting out and exercising. Like you are not alone in this. I mean,
right.
you have this amazing God that wants you to perform at your best. He wants you to pursue your vocation with vigor. Like he made you to be a wife and a mom or a husband and a dad. And so he wants you to be able to pour yourself fully into that. And
Yes.
you're able to do that with his help. Like if there's a vice that you got going on, ask for him to enter into that, right? That dark place and
100%.
yes, cleanse
I
you of
really
that.
try to implement a lot of that spirituality piece because so I namely work with women, but I also work with women who, do want to get their families healthy and that kind of thing. But so many women struggle with their identity, and they maybe place their identity in their weight or how they look. And so I'm always working with them on, no, our identity is in Christ, and we have to realize that, how much he cares for us, like, he doesn't talk to us in those negative ways when we're,
Mm,
down on we're shaming ourselves because of what we ate that day. No, he's so proud of us. He's so loving and he's so merciful and great. And so we just have to remember that we need to learn to talk to ourselves in that same way, in a
Mm.
loving manner, and be okay with when, I usually say fall forward. Like if you're gonna fall, just get back up and let's keep moving forward. We have
Yes.
to really understand who we are in Christ, to make this really work. And kind of like you said, to having Christ enter into every part of it. So making our life a prayer, like everything we do, we can just ask for him to walk with us in that.
Yes,
Very
yes.
important.
It can feel very lonely in parenthood, even if you're married and you have a solid marriage, both of you might be working or one working, one at home, you can feel like two ships passing in the night. You got kids underfoot all the time, or you're in the minivan and you're, just going from one thing to another. You can feel like and kind of go internally into this place of isolation.
Yeah.
And, as Christians, we know we're called to be in community with one another. We're called to be, helpers to one
Hmm.
another. And we're not called to do this parenting thing alone or marriage alone.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's something, whether your spouse is, out of the country for work or just at the office, or, you're waiting for kids in the car line, is like, just don't forget, like,
Yeah.
call on your God, right? Like a prayer
Absolutely.
and full surrender, like full mom, wife surrender, dad, husband surrender, grandparents, like, I don't have this right now, or I'm really struggling with this, or holy cow, I did what Sarah and Jordan said and eliminated sugar and I feel worse. Help me feel
Yeah.
better, right?
Right. Yes.
Yes.
So true.
And it
Yeah.
goes
That's so
back to the root of why we're doing things. I think
true.
if we don't understand why, it's important for us to do the things people are saying are healthy for us, then we just simply won't have the motivation to try. So I appreciate that that's part of your nutritional coaching and your lifestyle coaching with women, is that you're helping them to see the connection between what they're doing on a daily basis, their actions, their thoughts, what they're telling themselves about, who they are, and then really what God says about them.
Yes. Yes,
So good.
absolutely. Our mindset and our spiritual health is so important in this picture. Sometimes I'll tell people we think it's all about what we eat, but so much of it is up here and in our heart. Like that those are two big pieces of it too. It really is. So, yeah.
Totally. The full package
Yeah.
over at Nourish Health
Yes.
Coaching. I
Yes.
love this so much. So, Sarah, tell us a little bit about your coaching and, is it individual? Do you do any group stuff? Is it virtual, in person?
Yeah, you bet. So it's all virtual. Basically, I work with women who are, and sometimes couples. So if a woman wants to have her spouse join, we have a program for that as well. But what my main focus is women who just want to be healthier, who maybe are struggling with these things and don't know it, even hormone imbalance, some gut health issues, and really working on like blood sugar balance. So maybe if they're pre-diabetic or diabetic, those are, and a lot of those things really go hand in hand. But my goal for women is to really just regain their vitality so they can feel good, at whether they're a stay-at-home mom, whether they're working, just wherever, in their life, in their own skin, they feel good again. They have that energy, that mental clarity, their good moods back. So again, that they can serve and build the kingdom. I feel like that's such an important part of all of this. So yes, that is who I work with. I'll sometimes have moms say, can my whole family do this? And I'm like, 100%. Like I encourage it. I don't necessarily want to making a separate meal for yourself than your kids,
Yes.
and sometimes we have to start there, and that's okay. Like
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that either, but eventually, like, do you want your kids having maybe some of the same struggles that you're having someday? Probably not. So you need to set that foundation and be that role model for them. So yes, and usually, we're our family's eating the pizza, we're eating the spaghetti, we're eating tacos, we're eating all those things,
Mhm.
all the things that like the standard American meals, but we're just changing them up a little bit so
Yes.
that they're healthier than they were before. So it's not like I'm just having chicken and lettuce every night.
Right.
Heck
Thank
no.
you for saying that because there could be some listeners like, well, that's for the rural farmer
Yeah,
family that grows their own food. It's like, no, she's having to go a long ways to get some of this
yeah,
stuff or choose from a very limited selection in the little grocery store
yeah,
in your town
yeah.
and still making it work.
Right. Right. It's I mean, that's what we work on too is we got to stop the excuses and we're going to just make this so doable so that we can fit it into our busy crazy lives and you don't want to go back once you feel good, like you just know this is how God intended me to feel. This is how my body was meant to feel is with his full whole foods with the gifts that he gave us and put on the earth for us.
Full life living, like when
Yeah.
you're eating good foods and you're denying yourself those things that might really, tempt you,
Yeah.
that's where you get courage and confidence to do a little bit better the next time. If you can deny yourself and teach your children, hey, let's have dessert on Sunday. Let's like enjoy that. But how about Monday through Saturday? We're really disciplined about
Mhm.
not eating sugary foods or
Right.
one small treat a day. And that's
Yeah.
how we're going to start. Right. But building up that confidence and courage that we do hard things, that's virtuous. That's working on having developing character in your kids is denying ourselves the things that are really like flashy and shiny and that the bad gut army is like waving in front of us. It's like, get away
Yeah.
from me. I'm resisting this temptation because I know there's better stuff down the road for my
Yes.
life and for my family. So I just want
So
to
good.
talk for a minute about um, how we can support our spouse in pursuing what is best for them in their health. Because I remember as a young mom, I, struggled with this idea of like, just feeling like it was selfish for me to
Yeah.
speak up and be like, "Hey babe, do you like would it be okay if I talk to this coach about like just changing things up in my exercise routine or whatever?" And I just felt like maybe at the time I wasn't working as much and so there's all this, mental like barriers for me thinking, "Well, I shouldn't ask for that. It costs money." Now, fast forward to when I'm 45 and I'm like, "Man,
Yeah.
I could have given up a lot of other little ancillary expenses and invested in my health and really like blew the doors off of family life and marriage and maybe avoided some of the hiccups and stressors and even like blow up fights and just like guilt over how I've, you know,
Yeah.
yelled at my kids and they've scattered like cockroaches, right? Because if we're taking care of ourselves and we're investing money and time into this body that we're going to have until we're dead, I
Right.
mean, that's where we need to really be confident in speaking up and supporting, you know, our spouse in that way that like this is important.
Absolutely. I mean, what I would say is honestly, it can be sometimes the best thing for your marriage, the best thing for you as a parent, because again, it's just really changing how you, again, are patient with one another and that kind of thing. And you're right. So sometimes we often look at how much, something costs. It is truly an investment because health is the greatest wealth. I mean, we can have all the money, but if we don't feel good, what good does that do us?
What
So
quality
I
of
really
life? Yeah.
100% quality of life. Yes, it's and I people sometimes say, "Boy, you must want to live forever the way you eat." And I'm like, "No. I just want to feel good for the years that I do live." I just really do. So, I think it's really important that we support our spouse. Again, when we should want for our loved ones to be able to evolve and change. We should want that for them. Like
Yes.
that's part of loving one another. And
Yes.
so, yeah, that's really really important.
Oh, yes. So if you're listening and you're like, oh man, my wife's been talking about this for a long time, and I keep saying we don't have the money for it. Or my husband keeps saying, like, let's hire a personal coach. And I keep saying, that's like for wealthy people, not for us. Flip the script,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Listen to this over again. Remind yourself of your worth. Remind yourself that, avoiding taking care of your own health, that's actually the selfish thing to
Mhm.
do. The selfless thing to do, being the great servant to your spouse and to your kids, which I mean that in the most loving way, is to care for yourself first. The oxygen mask on you so that you can take care of those around you. So I would just encourage you listening, if this is resonating with you, just to think like, what is my health worth to me? You know, what is one thing that I could start doing today or anticipating the few days coming up that would indicate to myself that I am taking an active role in improving my health and thinking about the next step on how we're going to make some routines that are going to increase the energy and activity and clarity in the years that we have left in our lives. I loved how you said that, Sarah. I'm not trying to live forever. I'm just trying to live my best with the years that I've got.
Yes. Yes. Love that
So
so
good.
yes.
Guys, you've got to start following Sara Paxton. Okay, she is on all the social media channels. Instagram at Sara Paxton Nourish. Facebook is Sara Paxton. That's Paxton Health Coach, and TikTok at Sara Sara Paxton the number 8.
Yes.
So there you go. And website is sarapaxtonnourish.com. All of this is linked in our show notes, so you don't have to remember that. Just scroll down in the notes and check it out. Also, if you are not receiving our weekly newsletter that we sent out in email, please be sure to go to familiesofcharacter.com, hit the subscribe button so you get on our list. Sara provided for our listeners 5 healthy tips for families, and it's a printable. So you have something you can print out, post up. It'll remind you of this episode. It'll also give you some practical ways you can get started improving the health of your family today without overwhelm, without pressure. It's just like, here you go. Here's a free little gift to get you started. And obviously, if you want to reach out to Sara and do a discovery call with her, I would highly encourage that. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, I'd also encourage you to watch this on YouTube. When you see a person, you see their passion, you see the light shining from them, it really makes a difference. This girl is shining the light, okay? She is all about positive, spiritual involvement. It just radiates from her. So glad to know you, Sara. So glad for the reconnection after all of these years. You are going to be part of the Families of Character community going forward because
Awesome.
you're about the long game. We're about the long game. There's no hacks. There's no easy buttons.
Right.
We are in it to not just live status quo marriages or have status quo families, but we really want families that thrive. So thank you for bringing your wisdom, your professional experience, your real life family experience, and for blessing our audience and our community with all of your tips.
Thank you, Jordan. It's been such an honor. So good to
Guys,
see you again.
you too. I'm giving you a big virtual hug here through the screen. Okay, guys, I am going to catch you on another episode real soon. Be sure to check out what we're doing at familiesofcharacter.com. We've got some great new coaching programs going on that you don't want to miss out on, you and your spouse. So just be sure to be checking back with us often, and I'll catch you on another episode real soon. Take care.